Broadcasting from the Tasman Lake Lodge studio, this is Sporting Journal Radio. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. Now here's your host, Bret Amundson.
All right, welcome to the show. I'm Bret Amundson. Thank you for tuning in on this station right here by demand, sportingjournalradio.com, or by subscribing to the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or maybe you're watching this on one of our social media channels. Thank you very much. If you are watching this on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or where else are we at? TikTok, whatever. We're on all. This goes out to so many places. Make sure you smash that like button, so smash the subscribe or follow or whatever you need to do to follow us to get updates, because we continually bring you more and more content just about every day and sometimes multiple times per day. So make sure that you are following us to get the latest outdoor content here for outdoors that you care about in this region right here. All right, this week we have got some really cool stuff. Tanner Cherney is going to join us. Now, you may recognize that name. He was up at Visit Devil's Lake and Tourism in Devil's Lake, North Dakota. And of course, he was a content creator, so he's created some videos and done a lot of photography, and he's been on a lot of other radio and TV shows and things like that. He's also working with Spypoint, so we're going to talk about how you can be a better deer hunter this year and how Spypoint Trail Cameras can make you more successful this fall, and some of the new features that they have and some really cool contests as well, too. Joe Henry is going to join us to talk about the Shiner Run on the Rainy River. It's happening, and it's a really cool way that they determine how those shiners are happening. He'll explain it coming up later in the show. And if you want to fish Ontario waters, he'll tell you exactly what you need to go across that border. And then we also have Erik Osberg is back with Ottertail Lakes Country. The NWT tournament's coming up on Ottertail here pretty soon. He's going to talk about what that entails, what those guys are going to be doing on the lake, and if you want to fish Ottertail, few tips too to help you find some walleyes out there. As always, Dan Amundson is with us here on the show. Dan, how you doing?
It's hunting season, so I'm doing really, really well.
It is, and we just wrapped up our early teal season here in Minnesota, and we're going to give you our thoughts on whether or not Minnesota should continue that early teal season. But first, Dan, who is this week's show brought to you by?
This week's show is brought to us by Lake of the Woods Tourism. Plan a trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. Ottertail Lakes Country, find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. Haybale Heights Campground and Resort on Devil's Lake. Plan a trip to Devil's Lake at haybaleheights.com. OnX Hunt, know where you stand with OnX. Prairie Sportsman, watch episodes anytime at prairiesportsman.org. The big event happening this weekend, the Woods Outdoor Expo, this weekend on September 9th, 10th, and 11th in Warroad. Mid-Migration Outfitters hunt geese at the famous Lac Parle Refuge in heated pits and comfortable blinds. Learn more at midmigrationoutfitters.com. And Tasman Lake Lodge, plan a trip of a lifetime to catch giant lake trout and pike at tasmanlake.com.
Now, we went out and hunted every day for the early teal season here this year. In fact, here's a little taste of what our teal hunt looked like. One of them, anyway. Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh. There you go.
3 shots.
That's Tony Crowdy with us. So 2 teal came in just 100 miles an hour. Tony shot the one, and then the second one spun back.
There you go.
Smoke.
Boss putting the hammer down. Holy crap.
It's a nice shot, Tony.
They're coming so fast that when they came through the first time, they were so close. I was like, if I swing on these, I'm going to hit Tony with the end of my gun barrel.
That's why it took me 2 shots. The first one, I think I just shot right in front of him.
Heck yeah.
Oh my gosh, the difference in that boss is just crazy.
Smash him. So that second duck was with Boss.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you see the poop of feathers come off of it? He did.
Yeah, so what we're ending up doing a little bit around here, like everybody else, is scrounging for shells a little bit. So we did have some Boss shells with us, and then we had some assorted old shells that we've just been holding on to for situations like this. And Tony shot, I don't know if he missed with the other shell or hit that first duck and kind of wounded it. But that second duck he shot was with Boss and just destroyed it. Well, I shouldn't say destroyed it, but smashed it pretty good. Plenty of meat to eat on it, but knocked it down pretty good. So, Dan, we hunted every day of the teal season. It became more of a goose hunt for us pretty much every day. But what are your thoughts on the early teal season here in Minnesota?
I could really go either way on it. It was fun. It was cool to be able to goose hunt, and to be able to shoot teal. We were hunting a lot of geese on water, so it was kind of fun to be able to set a spinner and try to shoot some teal. But in all honesty, it became a lot harder to really make sure we were shooting at teal than I thought it would. In the regular season, you don't really have to think about whether it's a teal or not. You can see it flying and say, oh, yeah, that's a teal, shoot it. And if it turns out it was a wood duck, it's not a big deal. Now that it is a big deal, you had to be extra, extra careful. And we missed out on a few opportunities on ducks because of that, because we just didn't want to make that mistake. And so that was actually trickier than I thought. But it was fun, and I'm excited to eat the teal we have.
Yeah, and generally we were able to tell the difference between wood ducks and teal by the size, and obviously if they made any noise. But there were a couple of moments, like in that clip that we just showed you, where they were right there. They were so close. We were hunkered down in cattails. I didn't see them until they were like 5 feet away from us when they swung through that first time. And we were looking into the sun. It was just hard to tell. Now, I feel like I'm a fairly good judge of duck ID, and I can usually identify ducks pretty well during the regular season. But during that regular season, unless you're close to limits on certain species or hens versus drakes, you're generally probably can shoot that duck no matter what, so your ID becomes less important. We did miss some opportunities to shoot teal just because we weren't 100% certain, and we didn't want any mistake ducks. So we passed on some, and once they got past us and the sun hit them right, oh, okay, yeah, those were teal. And one thing I didn't take into consideration this time of year is a lot of those wood ducks and some of the other ducks, they're all brown. So you almost have to go on size or sound to identify them. My plan is like my plan to shoot teal almost any time of year is let them land and swim into the decoys, and then you get a pretty good look at them. And usually teal, like we did shoot one teal the last night of the season. I mean, we were standing kind of out in the decoys, and this teal flew into the decoys, landed, and was swimming in the decoys next to us, and Dan ended up shooting it. So teal, that's the best way to ID teal, because generally they're the dumbest ones and easiest to decoy. So it was an early goose hunt. Like if the early teal season coincides with the early goose season, like it did here in Minnesota this year, every year, I wouldn't mind it, because we can go out there and hunt geese and throw a spinner up in our goose spread. And if we get a bonus teal to come whipping through and we can ID it, I'd love to eat teal. So I like those bonus birds. But we're probably going to goose hunt most of the time early in the year anyway. My biggest push, I cannot stress this enough, and I say it every time I have this conversation with people, because I'll get some of those guys that hated the teal season say, I can't believe you pushed for it on your show. And I'll say, look, I pushed for the early teal season because I wanted us to have more days to hunt ducks in Minnesota. Generally, I would prefer them on the end of the season so we can hunt late season mallards. Now, I know weather sometimes shortens our seasons here in Minnesota, but it never fails where we're at. We're along the Minnesota River. We have some open water. We always have late season mallards around when we're hunting geese. Yeah, we can hunt geese late, which is great, but those late season mallards are my favorite, especially when we're hunting them in a field. They're fattened up. They're delicious. They're the best tasting ducks out there. I would rather shoot those than a teal on September 5th. Now, that being said, I'm still going to take advantage of every duck hunting opportunity I have. So I'll hunt the early teal season, but I would prefer to have days on at the end. In any case, there it is. It's a 3-year experimental season. Dan, we'll see what happens. I'm sure they'll do it for 2 more years unless they find out that this year went so horribly wrong. I did hear reports of mistake ducks, and there were people all over Facebook trolling with pictures of gadwall and wood ducks saying, oh man, I had a great opening early teal season shooting all these teal, and obviously they're just trying to get under everybody's skin. And Minnesota waterfowl hunters, if nothing else, are very passionate about hunting ducks in this state, and everybody's got an opinion on it. It's hard to please them all. So we'll see what happens. They had people out in spy blinds taking a look at hunters to see what ducks they were shooting. So I'm looking forward to hearing the results of how the first season went. I'm sure we'll do it for 2 more years and then re-examine and see how it goes. So we definitely have more other ducks in Minnesota this time of year than other states do during their early teal seasons. So we are. I don't think we'd shoot as many mistake ducks as some people think, but we do have the opportunity to shoot more mistake ducks just because we have those other nesting ducks here. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. All right, Dan, checking your trail camera is like Christmas morning. And what does Spypoint have in store for us? We'll find out next with Tanner Cherney right after this.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties, all in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX.
All right, well, I've known my next guest for a number of years now, first working in tourism in Devil's Lake and now creating his own content, doing some filming and photography, and also working with Spypoint. It's Tanner Cherney, and he joins us here on the show right now. Tanner, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Bret. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. It's good to have you on the show. If I had you on the show before, I'm trying to remember. I feel like I had you on the show, but I don't know if I actually have.
I think you have. It's probably been a few years now. It's probably back in my former role when I was working up in Devil's Lake in the tourism. I think we were talking some fishing or waterfall hunting the last time. So
Sure.
I believe I have, but it's been a few years.
I thought so. I mean, we talk pretty regularly, so sometimes this is our 470th show. So sometimes I forget who I've had on, and we have usually 4 guests per show. So that's a lot of guests that we've had on the show. So I forget sometimes, so I apologize, but glad to have you back. You're from Devil's Lake originally, right?
I am born and raised in Devil's Lake. Kind of lived there all my life, except for when I moved out for college for a few years and came back because it's what a wonderful place to live with. You're looking for a place to work, start your life, and you've got the outdoors right out your backyard. So lived there, and then I actually made the move down here to Bismarck about 2.5 years ago, and have been able to position myself down here. It's the state of North Dakota is wonderful with so many different opportunities, from fishing to waterfowl hunting to archery hunting, that this was just a good place to kind of call home for good and be more, adaptable, where the Badlands are a couple hours away, and Devil's Lake's a couple hours away, Sakakawea, Oahe, everything's within a couple hour drive. So for an outdoorsman like me, it's the perfect place to be.
I miss North Dakota, and I'm not going to say anything bad about Fargo, but that's where I lived, and I lived there for about 12 years, and I loved living in North Dakota because of those outdoor opportunities. Now, living in Fargo isn't exactly the best if you like to hunt and fish, because you generally have to drive a little bit to get to some of those good opportunities, but they're not far, and having those good old resident hunting licenses in North Dakota is always kind of nice, because you get to hunt a little bit more than you do when you're a non-resident. And I'll tell you what, like Devil's Lake, unbelievable area. Fishing, of course, world class, and the waterfowl hunting is unbelievable there. But Bismarck, when I left Fargo before I moved back to Minnesota, I considered moving out to Bismarck. In fact, I interviewed at a TV station out there to maybe do some TV out there, and that was what I talked to a few people. They're like, man, if you like to hunt and fish, Bismarck is one of the best spots, because you got the river there and waterfowl, you got pheasant hunting, you got Sharpie hunting, so many opportunities. And then the Badlands. I mean, how can you not love the Badlands? I got to bow hunt out there for a number of years, and I fell in love with the place, became one of my favorite areas on the planet to visit. And being in Bismarck, you kind of have it all. You can go anywhere right in the middle of the state there and have opportunities. But when I was doing that, Tanner, that was like right at the oil boom, when the patch was exploding, and people that were working in the patch, they couldn't find places to live. So Bismarck, it was even hard to find a place to live in Bismarck because of the oil boom back then. I'm sure it's subsided now since you've moved out there, but it was hard to find even find a place to live when I was looking out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was crazy when things were booming, when everything took off up in that part of the state. And I know from a few friends of mine that had moved down here prior to when I did, and it was tough going. But no, right now things have, I'd say, subsided a little bit, and definitely became a little more relaxed and available for properties and housing. So no, it's I agree. It's a great place to live here, and you have everything within a couple hours of a drive time from the town of Bismarck.
Now, your bow hunting season is open there in North Dakota. Ours opens up in another week here in Minnesota. I liked that early bow hunting opportunity out in North Dakota. I used to go to Western North Dakota right away for the opener, and sometimes it was late August, I believe, right around the beginning of September. It was always really hot, and I always watched more for rattlesnakes than I did for whitetails or muleys. But it was nice because you could get out there and try to get a velvet buck if you had your chance. Now, are you a bow hunter?
I am. I grew up doing a lot of tree stand hunting and sitting on the edge of crop fields and CRP fields. And that's the one thing about North Dakota is it's a lot tougher than, say, Minnesota, for instance. We don't have a lot of trees and stuff, so you kind of got to adapt your style of archery hunting, whether it's, utilizing ground blinds and things like that. But as I got older and kind of got into college, I really got into more of the spot and stock. So I don't really spend a lot of time in a tree stand anymore. It's more out west in the Badlands, public land, spot and stock with mule deer. And I tell you what, you get to see some pretty crazy things out there, from the muleys, the whitetails, the elk, heck, running into the bighorn sheep, and yes, the rattlesnakes, like you mentioned. I was out there a couple of years ago with a buddy of mine, and it was a early October hunt, and it was one of those days where it started out probably 35, 40 degrees, and we rolled out of the ice castle, got out to our spot and glassed, and by the afternoon it's pushing 75. And that night I was walking a game trail back, and my buddy was probably 3 steps behind me, and I wasn't even really paying attention. I kind of was on the mission to get back to the vehicle, and all of a sudden he stops and kind of screams some profanity, and I'm like, what the heck? And I look back, and here between us was a rattlesnake coiled up on the trail, and I'm either had to have stepped on it or brushed it with my boots.
Jeez.
But again, it was cold enough that he wasn't active, but by the time I went over him, he was on high alert. So yeah, it's definitely keeps you on edge out there.
I wanted to see one. I legit wanted to see one, but I wanted to see one at a safe distance, and I wanted to get a picture of one. And I know we saw when we were driving through the Badlands one time, or the park out there, Theodore Roosevelt National Park, and we were in a Jeep, and we ended up seeing one coiled up on the side of the road as we drove through. But it was, at that point, it's like being in a drive-through zoo or something. You're like, oh, hey, there's a rattlesnake. Huh, see, I'm going to stay in the car. This is good. But I'll tell you what, Dan showed that picture of that whitetail, and that's a buck I shot out there in the Badlands one year. And you talk about stand hunting versus spot and stock, and I got into stalking a few muleys, and I'll tell you what, I never got close enough to shoot. Well, I take that back. I did stalk a big one. He was with about 9 does, and they were in this little grove, this little tiny grove on this big hillside, and I came over the top of another hill, and I could see them all laying in there. And the wind was perfect. So I was like, all right, I can sneak around behind them, and I can creep up over the hill that's right on their backside. I'll have the wind in my favor. And I got within about 40 yards of them, and they got a little weird, and they all kind of stood up, and they were looking up the hill at me, and like half of them had their heads behind trees. So I couldn't tell which one was the buck, and which I could have shot him, and then all of a sudden they took off running. And I had the buck centered up right in front of me, and if I would have known it was him, I could have shot him, but I couldn't see the head, so I couldn't tell which deer it was. But I did have a stand on the Little Missouri River, and my buddy had some property out there, and I shot that 5x5 whitetail along the river there, and it was, I've told the story before on the show. I don't need to get into that story, but a couple years later, it was the only tree on the river, Tanner. And it was a couple years later, my buddy sent me a picture of that tree in my stand laying on the ground. The beavers had gotten to it. So it was the only tree on the river. It's gone now.
So it was perfect timing that you were able to do it and seal the deal when you did.
I did, and it was 3 bucks that came through, just this goofy little tiny guy, and then just a massive giant, and then one in the middle, and I ended up shooting that 10-pointer. That was it ended up being like a 136 or something. Nothing too special, but I mean it was a nice deer. He was nice and tall, and
it's a good looking deer. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was happy with it. But the other one was like, okay, I got to tell the story now. I shot 3 arrows at this buck, and when I hung the stand, there was a game trail, and I had ranged it when I hung the stand like a month earlier, and I thought I ranged it at 40 yards. So when I first took the shot, my arrow, he stopped broadside. I stopped him, and I drew back, and I shot, and my arrow went right over his back. Ping, 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 bounce. I can see it bouncing behind him. Oh. I'm like, are you kidding? He didn't move. He just stood there. And so I drew another arrow, and I shot, and just as I was releasing the arrow, he started to move, and I ended up hitting him a little high and a little back. And he just started walking. I mean, it was pretty obvious that he had been hit and hit pretty hard, but he started walking. And there's another deer hunting story that I won't go into this time, where I hit one high and back, and it took us a while to get to it, and coyotes had eaten half of it by the time we found it. In 4 hours, coyotes had eaten half of it. It's crazy. But so I stopped him again, and he just stopped and stared at me, and I drew back and double lunged him, and then he walked like 10 feet and fell over. Like never once took off running. 3 arrows shot at him. Never once took off running. But so that's my buck story from the Badlands.
I'm glad you got him. That just tells you that deer probably never saw too many humans out in that part of the area.
And not far from there, I did actually shoot a muley buck, and that was from a stand too. Surprisingly, I wasn't expecting to see a muley down along the river, but out there you just never know. And then that was the one that ended up going. He only went about 200 yards, but we couldn't find him, and it took us 4 hours. We backed out and came back in, and coyotes had already eaten half of them by the time we got to him. 4 hours later, at 11 a.m., we got to him.
That is quick.
So it's a cool place out there. Anyway, part of the reason I want to bring up bow hunting, because you're working with Spypoint, of course, and trail cameras have changed the game. It's changed the way people bow hunt. Like I don't even like to gun hunt anymore because bow hunting, it just gets you so much closer to the animals. It lets you observe them in their natural environments in a natural setting. They're not running scared for their lives as people just wing lead through the trees or across the open prairie. But it also, I think one of the most important parts of trail cameras, and I know some people think they're controversial, some people think they're making it too easy, whatever. But what it does is it allows you to manage the game that you have on your property. I mean, obviously you're gonna have deer moving in and out, but it gives you a snapshot of what's in the area and can allow you to grow bigger bucks or shoot the right doe or cull deer, or, whatever you want to do. It gives you a chance to know what's out there, so you're not just shooting the first thing that walks in front of you.
Absolutely, yeah. So no, I've been working with Spypoint Trail Cameras, and the cell cam industry has just exploded. And the crazy cool thing about our cameras is the fact that like where I do actually rifle hunt is about 120 miles southwest of Bismarck, and for a guy working, it's not the easiest to always get down there and check SD cards or check cameras and move things around. And, when you can literally go to the app on your phone and wherever you're sitting, you can see what has come through in the last day or couple of days and not have to worry about taking a full Saturday to go check trail cameras. It just changes the whole way you can hunt now. And like you said, the herd management thing about it and being able to see your bucks that you have on the property and, all right, I've got a couple 3.5, 4.5-year-old deer. I do have a 5.5 or whatever it may be, and allows you during the season, because how many times have you been sitting in a blind or a tree stand and you're like, that looks like a good shooter, but if you knew that there was a bigger, healthier deer out there, you may hold out, and if you didn't know that, you may shoot that one. So it is a great way for quality deer management, being able to basically build up those herds. And I think trail cameras are probably one of the most I would equate it to like using binos or a spotting scope out in the western landscape when you're glassing for deer. This is your eyes in the woods when you're not always able to be out there and keeping an eye on what you have on your property.
Well, it's so important if you do have a big buck not to disturb him. So if you can stay out of the woods or stay out of his normal roaming territory or his bedding area, and just be able to check that camera remotely, you're going to be able to keep that buck around versus going in there and bumping him or bumping some of his does or whatever and kicking him off the property.
Absolutely. And then, you get into the rut season and things start getting heated up and you start to see more deer movement, and you might be like, hey, I need to take a couple days off of work. I've noticed a lot more daytime activity.
Yeah.
And it's like, I need to get out there because seasons are changing and it's now or never. And yeah, so with Spypoint, we're very fortunate. We're one of the, we always like to say, when you purchase a camera from us, you never necessarily have to spend another dime to get photos, because we do give you 100 free photos every month per camera that you purchase. And you know what? It's one of those things. It's almost like, people always talk about Twitter and Facebook every morning. You get on your phone and it's your news, or you check things on there. Well, like for a guy like me, I get up every morning and I look at my trail cam feed and see what crossed the path here in the last 24 hours. And it gets you excited. And, it's one of those things. I think, the industry has just changed so much in the last 4 or 5 years, just like everything hunting and fishing has. And it's crazy to see where it's going.
I remember when I got my first Spypoint cell camera, and I was like, oh my, this is unbelievable. And I was literally checking the camera like every hour, because I got it set to send me pictures every hour or whatever, communicate with the device. Before that, I remember going out, and I think before I got that, where I had my camera was about a half-hour drive. So I'd have to drive all the way out there, and then I'd have to, I'd usually put on rubber boots, and I'd spray down. I'd put on some camo just to walk out to the trail camera, because you don't want to, if you got to go out to your trail camera, you don't want to go charging in there anyway. You want to go in there in stealth mode like you're hunting. So you get all, Mission Impossible style. You walk back to your camera, and then you get the card, and then you look at the card and go, man, I got to sneak back out of here, drive back home, go in the house and plug this into my computer. So I'd definitely be breaking the law, speeding to get back home, because it's like Christmas morning when you get to look at those pictures, Tanner.
It really is. I mean, that's the best part, is seeing, okay, and it's half the time it's not even the deer you necessarily see in your camera. It's things that show up, whether it's, you have a mountain lion come through, or a raccoon, or whatever it may be. And, with our app, the one really cool thing is, I know you've probably have done this in many of your times going through SD cards, is how many times do you sit at the computer and you scroll for 20 minutes to go through 300 deer or doe photos just to find that one buck and then clear those out. Well, in our Spypoint app, you can go right to the buck filter and buck tracker, and basically it takes out any deer that doesn't have, through the AI built into it, that doesn't have antlers. So at the click of one button, your 5,000 photos that might be on that SD card are filtered down to just antlered buck photos. So it really is a time saver in that realm too.
That's amazing. That is nice. And do you have one that can just automatically delete pictures of swaying grass by any chance? Because that would be nice.
Oh, trust me, that, especially in the Dakotas here, you get yourself on the edge of a field and you got that sensitivity set a little too high. It'll take a lot of snapshots in the course of a day. I've experienced that myself.
That app is really handy because you can actually go into it and change some of the settings on the camera from home too, so you don't have to go out there to do that.
Yeah, you can go in and you can change you can have it set up so it sends you every other transmission that something comes by, it'll send you the previous photos. You might have your camera in a spot that doesn't have the greatest cell service, so you might just have it set to twice a day, once a day, whatever time it is. For when it sends you the transmissions of the previous photos stored on the card. You can go in and change your frequency, all of that settings remotely. So like you said, you're sitting at home, drinking your cup of coffee, enjoying a beverage in the evening, whatever it may be, and you're not having to go trudge through the woods or a sanctuary or a bedding area and disturb the deer, but yet you can take care of all of that stuff. And, you talk about battery life with running good batteries in there. It's amazing how far like a lithium ion battery will go on these trail cameras nowadays. But we also do have a couple different options with integrated solar panels into the trail cameras now. So you can get a lot longer battery life. So you can go out at the beginning of the season and conditions are right, you may never have to change a battery for quite some time.
The other thing I've always liked about those cell cameras is you can also see if somebody else is on your property, or someone's driving down one of your trails or trespassing or whatever.
Absolutely. We came out with the Link Micro here a couple of years ago, and that is probably one of the smallest, most compact cell cams out there. And the fact that you could put that on a tree or a fence post and in the right spots, you would never even know that's there. So it is a great way to, keep track of whether it's trespassing or things like that, and security. And we've got a few guys I've talked to that actually, they use them for, obviously checking bear sites, but another way that it comes in handy is checking the camera before you go into a bear site for a sit in the evening, is just, for safety purposes, to make sure you're not trudging in on a bear that's hungry and sitting there waiting for you and your bear bait. So there's a lot of purposes, not just for deer hunting applications, that these cameras can provide for anyone looking to use them.
My buddy Barry Prawl, who guides bear hunters, he gets these little bears that hear the four-wheeler, coming, or side by side coming when he's going to go put fresh bait in, and they'll just be hanging out next to it for him, waiting for him. And he's had to punch him in the face when he's trying to dump bait into the barrel, because they'll just come up and try to grab. He's like, "Get out of here!" These little bears, they're almost like his pets sometimes, it seems like. But yeah, so these cameras? So you talked about 100 free photos. But you can actually buy some plans where you can get some unlimited photos, which I've done because it's pretty cheap to get unlimited photos.
It is. We've got all of our plans on our website for, anywhere from 250 photos a month, and it kind of staggers up to the unlimited plan. And then the new thing we came out with here a year ago is our Insiders Club, which is kind of like it's $99 a year to get into the Insiders Club, and then you get discounts on your photo transmission plans, accessories online, free shipping. There's a lot of different advantages, exclusive content, and then we just actually launched here about 3 weeks ago our grand giveaway for this year. For anyone that's in our Insiders Club, you're automatically entered to win, possibly have the chance at winning a 2021 Toyota Tundra Crew Max.
Nice.
And included in that is it's going to be a cumulative prize over the next 6 months. It's going to move from different people throughout the United States, and they're going to all add different prizes into this giveaway. And at the end of February, we're going to draw one lucky winner from our Insiders Club membership to win the whole prize package. So kind of just another little nice incentive to be in that little group. But yeah, there's a lot of added features in the Insiders Club that are great, especially if you're running multiple cameras. You're running 3 or 4 cameras and you've got plans on all of them. You actually are money ahead by doing that and getting the discount than buying an individual plan for each camera. And the cost savings is it's a good break even.
Where can we find Spypoint online and on social media?
So online, Facebook, it's going to be Spypoint Trail Cameras. Spypoint Camera on Instagram, and our website spypoint.com is going to have all of our social handles and everything right on there that you can access. And if you're looking for good content to see a lot of big deer, elk, things like that, hopefully these next couple months we're going to be pushing out. We got people sending us photos all the time, and I tell you what, if you're in content creation, there's no better place to be than in the trail cam industry, because there's endless amounts of photos at your disposal. That's
right. Can they send them to you or tag you, or how do they get them? How do they get you photos?
So you can tag us with you can either use our @Spypoint Camera brand handle on Instagram, but our main Spypoint hashtags are Spypoint Camera, Spypoint, and #YI Spypoint. The YI Spypoint's kind of the overarching brand that we're trying to establish over the next couple of years. So that's going to be the number one hashtag that we're always looking for content to be tagged in.
Very cool. Tanner Cherney, appreciate the time. Good luck bow hunting, duck hunting, pheasant hunting, fishing, whatever else you're going to be doing this fall. And thanks for the time today on the show.
Thank you, Bret. Good luck to you this fall as well.
Devil's Lake is legendary, and this summer has been legendary for walleyes. Don't miss out. Call Haybale Heights Campground and Resort today to book one of their modern cabins on East Bay. The cabins are furnished with a full bathroom, kitchen, and all the amenities like high-speed internet, and are clean following CDC guidelines. Staying at Haybale Heights gives you full access to a private boat launch, fish cleaning station, and beach area. Learn more at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. Plan your trip to legendary Devil's Lake today.
All right, our next guest is Erik Osberg from Ottertail Lakes Country to talk about, there's some sort of little fishing tournament going on in Ottertail County. Erik, how's it going, man?
It's going good. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. You guys got a busy weekend coming up.
Yeah, it's going to be busy, and I feel bad because I haven't been making time to give it the attention it deserves. But the good news is the NWT knows what they're doing, and hopefully the water levels stay where they're at, because there's been some questions about, gee whiz, are we going to be able to get boats into Ottertail Lake? And as of right now, at this moment, I believe we can. But the NWT Championship is coming to Ottertail Lake. And the good news is it'll be, the best of the best. It'll be 40 qualifying boats and 40 qualifying co-anglers, and we felt like we started the fishing season with the Governor's Fishing Opener, and we felt like this made a nice bookend, if you will,
sure, to
what's been a pretty busy summer. And so we're gonna have the best walleyes anglers arguably in the world on Ottertail Lake, and I really hope they catch fish.
How much work on your end did it take to, did you have to say, hey, you guys should come have the championship here on Ottertail, or did they come to you? And then how much work have you had to do preparing for this event, or have they handled most of it?
They've handled most of it. It's been a fairly light lift from a people power standpoint. No, it's just kind of a, who knows who type of deal, right? So somebody contacted me because the NWT was looking for places that might be interested in hosting this. And so I said, well, we might be. And then we, kind of read the advantages of being the host community. And again, we felt like with how we started the summer, this is a pretty cool way, in the marketing world, it's always best to have your name associated with the latest and greatest thing that's happening. So we figured, why not just see if we can extend our moment in the sun, so to speak. But no, the NWT has been great to work with, and they got a good staff, and they know what they're doing, and we're just trying to make sure that they feel welcomed and accommodated when they do get here. Again, my first question when we started talking about it, I'm like, just so you know, this isn't Lake Erie, right? Like, the bags aren't going to be, the bags aren't going to be 30 pounds, because you're dealing with a different type of fishery. Guys can only use one line, so they're not going to be setting out 3 planer boards on a side and looking for 3 10-pound walleyes. They're going to get their 5 unders and their 1 over, and hopefully they enjoy that. I've talked to some anglers who have said it's kind of cool because it's almost a little old school, right? Like, it might come down to a jig and a minnow.
Yeah,
like,
right.
The guy or gal, or whoever wins it might have a jig and a minnow. They'll have the rod in their hand, so to speak, maybe. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. And for me personally, I know a lot of these guys, and so it's been a long time. It's been a long time since I've been around them, and looking forward to having them in town.
Is that on Saturday, or is it 2 days?
Well, actually, it's 3 days. So it's the 22nd and the 23rd, which is a Wednesday and a Thursday, and then the top 10 from the first 40, right? So there's like you got to make the cut. So there's 40 will go out on Wednesday the 22nd, 40 will go out on Thursday the 23rd, and then the top 10 will duke it out on Friday the 24th. So it'll be fun, and we're looking for volunteers to help move boats around in shallow water if anybody's looking for something to do those 3 days.
Sure. How do they reach you for that if they want to help out?
They can call me or text me. My cell is 218-639-3130, 218-639-3130. And again, as long as we can get the boats off the trailer, I've said that we'll get an army of people to walk the boats to deeper water if we have to. But one way or another, we'll get it done.
And they're going to catch fish, Erik. I have no doubt that they're going to catch fish out there. These are obviously good anglers, and there's plenty of walleyes in that lake. They're going to find them. But if they would have listened to, and obviously the patterns are probably starting to change a little bit, but if they would have listened to Randon a couple weeks ago, he's got some pretty interesting tips on where you might find walleyes on that lake. And it's not going to be some of your typical walleye spots. So there's a little hint to you NWT anglers out there that are going to be fishing that lake.
Yeah, and I, it's a shame that Randon and I don't get to fish Ottertail more, because we both fish it the same way. But he's doing it during the day, right? Like, I'm out there, right. I'm out there at midnight. Did you see the lure he was using? Did you see on his Facebook page? It was like a squid-looking tube jig.
Oh yeah,
it was like that big, and I'm like, first of all, where do you get one of those? And second of all, who would ever use that to try to get? But throw something different. But
I think that's how we titled, and you can watch the video with our interview with Randon on our YouTube page or Facebook page, and he talks about weird walleyes. No, weird. What was it, Dan? Weird techniques in weird places or something for walleyes. Like, he was using bass fishing baits, basically.
Yeah. There's that's not, if it was me, I'd be pulling something, behind the boat, but casting, big lures catch big fish. I mean, you and I have talked about it a lot, right? Whether it's plastics or stick baits or whatever it is. Walleye anglers, a lot of them already know, but you don't have to be dragging around a Lindy rig all day long. There it is right there. That's the secret. That secret's out now.
Well, you just got to be flexible when you're on the water. If you're not finding fish, try different presentations. If you're finding fish, try something different, or go shallow, or whatever. That might be the ticket. Never know.
right? You never know. But yeah, it'll be fun to have them here for sure.
Well, good luck with that tournament, Erik. Good luck with everything else up there in Ottertail Lakes Country. And if people want to find out more about Ottertail County, what should they do?
They should find their inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com.
Northern Minnesota's Walleye Factory is a year-round world-class fishing destination. The perfect getaway this summer is just a short drive to Lake of the Woods. Fish Big Traverse Bay, the Rainy River, or visit the unique Northwest Angle. To catch big fish, you have to go where the big fish are. Plan your trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. That's lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
All right, it's that time of year, ladies and gentlemen, where it becomes tough to go hunting or fishing, or tough to make the decision. Do you go hunting? Do you go fishing? I try to do both, try to do it all. It gets tough to do that, but the fishing can be so good this time of year, and the nights are starting to get a little bit cooler. The days are going to get a little bit shorter, and your fall patterns are going to start coming into effect when it comes to fishing. And Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism is going to join us now to talk about fall fishing up at Lake of the Woods in the Rainy River. Joe, how you doing?
Hey, Bret, I'm doing well.
Before we get into that, though, you're going to Michigan here this week.
Yeah, actually, so I'm pretty active in an organization that you're aware of called GLOW, and that stands for Association of Great Lakes Outdoor Writers. And really what it is, it's a group of outdoor media combined with outdoor corporates and destinations that all get together and have a big old conference. And you can understand the mutual wins there and the importance of the relationships and things. I'm a board member in the organization, and we're going to be putting our hat in the ring for a future annual conference, which we have hosted before. And I don't know, I've got a notification that I won an award this year. So I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an article or a video or what it is, but that's one of the things that GLOW does is they recognize, the outdoor professionals and some of the work they do. And I know you've received awards from a GLOW before, Bret, and so it's just it's a good week, and so a lot to prepare for, a lot to handle when I'm out there. But I tell you, when it's all said and done, it's a great group of like-minded people, and a lot of them certainly come and visit Lake of the Woods.
I received a notification that I won an award this year too, and I'm.
Congrats! Cool.
Thank you. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it next week. Unfortunately, I was trying to get it done, and I'm still holding out hope that I might try to get up there, but I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. But Joe, I submitted one of our interviews on this show right here, so maybe we're an award-winning team here. I'm just saying.
Well, you don't think that? So you don't think that interview hurt you too bad, huh?
you probably helped it quite a bit. Let's be honest. But,
well, that's great. I'll tell you what. All kidding aside, I have a chance to see what you put into this, and Dan behind the scenes, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes to make a good show. So kudos, and it's part of being recognized by your peers. It's important.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I do. We don't give Dan enough credit, and he's really increased his role here. And because he's family, I don't have to pay him for it, which is nice. But no, Dan is doing so much.
He would agree.
Yeah. Dan is doing so much for the show, and a lot of what you see now is I've become a lot hands off now on the show, which is nice for me because it helps me focus on being just mediocre instead of really bad. And Dan is doing a lot of the work behind the scenes now to make this show really shine. So nice job, Dan, by the way. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Joe, let's talk fall fishing. Lake of the Woods, of course, gets really good. The Rainy River gets really good. I saw another video that you put on social media this week about the shiner run taking place in the river. And that's kind of a neat process how they get those shiners there.
It's so cool, Mother Nature. And, as soon as one of the experts, and there's a lot of experts out there that really do understand Lake of the Woods and the Rainy River with all due respect, much more so than I do. But I'll tell you, as soon as somebody thinks they know something, Mother Nature will surprise them. Only Mother Nature truly knows. Well, I wonder how the walleye run's going to be this year. Wow, the water in the river is real low, so I'm not optimistic. Well, the shiner's already running. So who freaking knows? Yeah. Honestly, when the water's running hard, sometimes the shiners run intermittently. But I can tell you this, is that the shiners are already running. And I'm already getting some reports, not hot and heavy, but I am getting some reports of, people catching walleyes on the Rainy River. So some people are starting to target them now, knowing the shiners are in the river. The other thing that happens is that there's just a transitional fall movement of walleyes in the lake in general. A lot of the walleyes will set up on the south shore. Some set up adjacent to streams and rivers like the Rainy, Bostic Creek. Some set up adjacent to bays because shiners will go in there and run sometimes, especially up at the northwest angle. And there's just some fall spots, and that fall pattern is just starting to come to fruition. They're still pulling spinners, but even pulling spinners, some of the guys are saying now that those walleyes are actually hitting a little bit better on some days on a spinner and a minnow versus a spinner and a crawler. So you can see that things are starting to turn, and it won't be very long. In fact, I wouldn't doubt if some people are already doing it, where jigging with a frozen emerald shiner or a fathead, either one, but jigging will take over the preferred method of fishing for walleyes, I guess the way to say it. But that's going to be happening real quick. And then you still pull cranks all season long. You pull cranks until the ice comes, but jigging is going to be a main presentation.
Those resorts up there, they're allowed to net those shiners now, right? And that becomes a big supply for their bait throughout the year, correct?
It is, yeah. So it all has to do with whether you have a bait license or not, and you have to be authorized and know what to do and how to do it. You can't just go net shiners because of there's VHS disease and minnows and other things. They keep track of AIS, but yes. So if they can get the minnows, they will get the minnows. And then what they do is everybody has a different recipe on how to keep. Some resorts will keep them in the fall alive the best they can. And that way you can buy live shiners when you're fishing, fall fishing. Some will. Everybody has a different recipe on how to properly freeze them. Some flash freeze them and lay them flat and flash freeze them. Some pour a certain kind of salt into a 5-gallon pail of water with the minnows and then freeze them. I mean, everybody has a different recipe. Some say that you can't harvest minnows yet because they get mushy when you freeze them. Some say that no problem as long as you treat them a certain way. Again, everybody has a different method. And I will say this, some years you get the shiners, some years you don't get the shiners. Some years you get the shiners and they're too small, so you don't really harvest them. Other years it's bonsai and you fill your freezers as full as you can get them, cover the winter and spring. So, if you can get them, and I'll tell you the other thing too, just like anything in life, there's so much that happens behind the scenes that people never know. Yeah. You should see these bait guys and gals, whether it's from a bait store, whether it's from a resort or whatever, you should see the effort they go through in getting these shiners. You'll see videos I'll put up of thousands of shiners jump around in a net, or you'll see swirling under a light they have at the end of their dock. That's when it's good. You don't see the sleepless nights where they're out working and get nothing for their efforts. That's more common than not. So they really work hard, and they got to constantly be checking, because if they don't check their nets and there was a big run, then you've missed out. Yeah. So a lot of them will set their alarm in the middle of the night and check periodically a couple times throughout the night. And if there's nothing there, they try to go back to bed. I mean, it's really it's not easy. If it's that easy, everybody'd be doing it.
Do you have that video, Dan, of the net and the light? You're trying to get it. I know we had a little technical glitch there earlier, but we're going to try to play that, because I think it's just kind of neat how I remember the first time I went up there in the fall, and it was after dark, and I walked down on the dock just to kind of look around, and it's one of my first times I'd been up there, and I saw this light on the end of the dock, and I was like, what the heck is this thing? And all these minnows swimming underneath it. Yeah, there it is. And that's how they get their shiners.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you the other thing too. There's been a couple years ago, I went down to the end of the dock just to see if the shiners were running, because everybody has their lights out as the fall goes on, and I went just to check the light out, and the shiners were swirling under this light. It was so cool. Every once in a while, you hear a big splash where there's a walleye or something else chasing them at night. Well, and it was cool because I would happen to be on the Rainy River. Across the Rainy River to my left in Canada, you could hear a pack of wolves howling. Oh, neat. Back over my right shoulder, you could hear domestic dogs from houses barking at the wolves. Across the river, straight across in that kind of a bay, and it's Canadian side, huge flock of Canadian geese were there honking away, staged for the night while they're migrating. And then, of course, over my head, you could hear that.
Ducks.
The divers were migrating over at night over my head, bluebills, and I would imagine bluebills and other kind of divers. But, the point of it is that, Mother Nature kicks in the fall, and it's what creates tradition, whether it's hunting or fishing. And there's a lot of people that go up to the Rainy, and, by the time you hear the fish are running, you're too late. You almost just have to be there and see how it goes. And normally you're going to find some fish, whether it's in the river or if it's a nice day, take it on lake. I'll tell you the other thing about fall fishing is that if you have a 14 or a 16-foot boat on the Rainy River, you'll be golden. I mean, it's no problem fishing, and they'll fish that whole stretch from the mouth of the Rainy River, all the way to Birchdale. It's about a 42-mile stretch of navigable water where those walleyes can be hanging out. And there's so many nooks and crannies. You'll have 6, 8, 10, 15 small school over in this piece of structure. You'll have a big school swimming through if you happen to whack them. I mean, it's cool. And then, of course, you get mixed in with the smallies, the pike, and the sturgeon accidentally. And it's kind of a fun atmosphere.
Real quick, Joe, where are we at with fishing on the Rainy River when it comes to the border through the river there?
Well, the way it works right now is that if you fish the U.S. side, you're fishing Minnesota, no problem. And, the definition is from land border to land border, halfway across the river is Canada. That's the international line. So normally there's a line on your GPS if you have a GPS. Otherwise, you can just eyeball it for the most part. Now, if you want to fish in Ontario waters, as long as you're not touching land, touching a dock, exchanging goods or services, or anchoring up, you can go on the Canadian side without calling or checking in. And then you don't need a passport or any other credentials you need. If you're going to touch land, just like passing into Canada now you need to have the Arrive Can app. Now you have to have your vaccination card uploaded to that. You need to have your COVID test. It's less than 72 hours. It's a PCR or a molecular test. And, of course, your credentials with your passport card, or a driver's license and a birth certificate. So, when you're driving up to the Northwest Angle through Canada, there's a couple of hoops you have to jump through. But really, if you're vaccinated, that's the biggest one. I just helped a group set up a trip, Bret, that a couple of people in the group decided not to get vaccinated, their choice, but they still wanted to go to the angle because they hear how good the fishing is up there in the fall. So they're going to go across via charter boat, and they're going to just take the round trip charter up to a U.S. resort and have an incredible trip, and they're good to go. We also have Lake Country Air, which is the float plane service that can take you across to avoid customs also.
Is there still a bait situation with the border?
Yeah, well, it's only a situation if you're an American. Because if you're in Canada, you can buy bait. So, if right now, as of October 2020, nobody really knew it until we were able to go fishing into Canada again. But as of October 2020, the CFIA, the Canada Food Inspection Agency, said no bait at all over the border. Not live, not dead, not frozen. It used to be that you could bring dead minnows over. You could bring frozen shiners over. You used to be able to bring live night crawlers packed in bedding as long as they weren't in soil. Well, no, all of that's off. So what most folks are doing is going up with their different kind of plastics on a jig, or if they're casting for muskies, they're not using live bait anyway, typically. In the fall, some people use live suckers, of course. But otherwise, they're using the plastics on a jig. And, a lot of people mentioned to me they were using Berkeley products, Power Bait and Gulp, and they said, man, we used a black and a white to mimic a shiner. Did that ever work good? And then they also said that, if you get hit and your bait comes off and you miss that walleye is still hot. Mm-hmm. You still have your bait on with a plastic. You'll get a second chance at that fish. So that's actually, and you can cast and you can snap it more and do things you couldn't do with live bait. So pros and cons, but it's working out real nice.
Yeah, we're getting into more and more plastics when it comes to walleye fishing. But so just to be clear, like if you're fishing the Rainy and you want to fish the Ontario side, even that situation, you can't bring any shiners with you across that, right?
Exactly. If you decide to fish the Ontario side of the Rainy River or Lake of the Woods, no bait whatsoever, no live, frozen, or dead bait. You have a different length limit on your fish. You can only keep typically a couple of walleyes. I mean, you got to have an Ontario fishing license. You got to have an outdoors card. You just have to know before you slide over that border and start fishing. If you're navigating into Canada waters just along that edge because you're avoiding boats or something, that's no problem. You can navigate, no problem. But if you're fishing, then all the fishing rules apply.
Well, at least the fish don't know the borders there, so you don't have to cross the border to fish, thankfully. All right, Joe.
They don't have maple on
them? They don't have GPS. And they don't have their vaccinations, so they got to stay on one side or the other. All right.
We'll keep it safe. We'll keep it clean, right?
Yeah. If people want to plan a trip up there this fall or start thinking about ice fishing at Lake of the Woods, what should they do?
You know what? Our Facebook page has current info, and that's Lake of the Woods Tourism. Otherwise, check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.